Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Laura. Today I'm going to do a Top 5 Wednesday. Top 5 Wednesday is a Goodreads group that was created by a booktuber named Lainey from Ginger Reads Lainey. Her details and the Goodreads details will be linked below. The topic for this week is Top 5 Biggest Book Hangovers. So you might not know, but I'm actually mostly a manga reader, so I'm actually going to answer this question with volumes of manga instead of prose fiction. So it'll be different than most people who are answering this. Now, I don't remember exactly what this book is about. I am planning on rereading it very soon, but I do remember the book Hangover. That is What a Wonderful World by Inio Asano. When I read this, it was an incredibly cathartic read, and I remember crying through most of it, and then crying for hours after. Why? I don't remember. I think it was because it was really beautiful, not because it was sad. I think that this is sort of interconnecting stories. I think it's sort of a little bit coming of age. There's a little bit of magical realism in it. At least I trust that there is because it's Inio Asano and that's what he tends to do. I am planning on reading this again in March to really reappreciate it, but I have been avoiding it because I remember The Hangover, and I've been kind of afraid of it because I was so affected when I read it. But I do tend to like to read my titles over and over and over so that they kind of sink in and seep in and I can remember them well, and it's really a shame that I don't remember this. So yeah, that is number 5. Number 4 is also a drama. It's The Name of the Flower by Ken Saito. This is a story about grief, and it's really dramatic. It's about this young girl here. She's sort of graduated high school, going into college, and her parents are in an accident and they're both killed, so she's sent to live with a distant cousin. And her cousin is sort of really abrupt and kind of isolated. He's a novelist, and so he takes care of her, but she's, you know, so emotionally distraught. She's completely withdrawn, and he's kind of a really withdrawn person as well. So he ends up giving her the garden in their yard to tend, and the garden sort of heals her, and then, you know, as she tends the garden, then he sort of, as he sees her sort of blossom, I guess, you know, he also is sort of healed in turn. It's really poetic and graceful and moving, and like afterwards you just feel like you need to be quiet. So so yeah, this is one I've read a few times, but it is one that kind of sits with you afterwards. I highly recommend it. It's a really, really good series. If you can get your hands on it, it's from CMX. It is out of print. But a really, really beautiful series. Number 3 for me is Gyo, and I don't actually have a copy of it. I'll put a picture right about there. It's a horror manga from Junji Ito. Junji Ito is a master of horror. And more, not so much like scary horror. You don't feel really frightened by his stories, but you definitely are kind of moved to like those feelings of suspense and twisty weirdness. In Gyo, you know, Gyo isn't his most popular work, but for me it was the one that most affected me so far of the titles that I've read of his. It's hard to explain what it is, but throughout the series, you just sort of, all the humans and animals are sort of like starting to decompose. They're actually like living corpses, and they're decomposing, and they are like exuding gases, and so like the entire world is just sort of being drowned or, you know, suffocated by this gas. And it's not only do you see it in the story, but you also just sort of feel it, and you just sort of feel kind of suffocated. And so after that, you know, after the suffocation of his main story, Gyo, I had to close the book, and I had to open the windows, and I had to go outside and just like breathe deeply, because I just felt so confined and weighted down by that story. So it really like physically affected me. Like I actually felt like I was like, it was smelly and putrid in my house. Like I really just needed fresh air. So that one was quite good to read, and I highly recommend it, especially if you like horror. that one really stuck with me for a long time after I read it. Number 4 is Genshiken by Kiyoshimoku. Essentially this is a story about a group of otaku or geeks. They're a club at college and they're all interested in varying levels of like anime, manga, video games, drawing, cosplay, and so there's just a couple of people in this group. They're really kind of the fringes of geek society even, and it's definitely, I wouldn't say that this is a good series if you're not already big into this world, but because I really relate to these characters, and it is more of a slice of life series, I don't like it to end, and so I have a hard time dealing with life after this story is over, because I belong in this book. Like, these are my friends, and yeah. So, you know, if you're a geek or otaku, or kind of claim yourself to be otaku, you definitely need to read this series. Again, this is a 16+, so it's not a kid's story, but yeah, I definitely relate to it. I have lots of titles that I could put for number 1, and I have lots of you know, titles that really like cause me to have hangovers to think about for a long time after. But this one, I was just really surprised by how much I was affected by it, and you might be too, especially if you've read it. And it's Old Boy, story by Garan Tsuchiya and art by Nobuaki Minagishi. Essentially, it's a story about this character here on the cover, and he's been imprisoned for 10 years. He doesn't know why, and now all of a sudden he's been released. He doesn't know why, and so it's sort of a mystery about kind of like reclaiming his life, and there's, you know, it's really kind of a nice, complicated story, and it just got this like good pacing, good action, good drama, and you just feel like the whole story is leading up to this like really climactic moment, this climactic punch, and the end is just really, I would say, subtle. It ends subtly. I know a lot of people I've read online, they just didn't like the series thanks to the ending, but to me, I was so affected by the ending. Like, the story was so, it wasn't what I was expecting, and so I just like couldn't stop thinking about how it ended, and the more I thought about it, the more I liked it, for sure, which is, you know, it's actually a really, really good series, and I highly recommend it. But I didn't know how affected I was by it, because it did seem sort of like a soft ending. But then, you know, I read, you know, 10 more volumes of manga, 20 more volumes of manga, 40 volumes of manga, and I still couldn't stop thinking about the end of the story. So this one really just sort of like, I couldn't get past it for a long, long time. Like, it probably was 2 months of just sitting in the back of my head, and I was just like, what is this? Like, a really, really good series. It is rated mature readers 18+, so, you know, I would say kiddies avoid this one, but highly, highly recommend it. It's really, really great series. If you haven't had a chance to read it, you should. So those are my top 5 biggest book hangovers. You know, if you're interested in manga, or you want to talk about any of these titles, especially if you've read them, if you remember what A Wonderful World is about, and why was I so emotional when I read it, you can remind me. And definitely, you know, if you are interested in manga at all, please stick around, subscribe to my channel, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!